to Fish on Fridays. I'm McCauley, and today I want to talk to you about a piece of relatively new art that was created by a woman named Sister Grace Remington. She's a Cistercian nun at Our Lady of the Mississippi Abbey in Iowa, and it's just a fascinating piece of art to look at. And I like it for several reasons, but one of the reasons I like it is because of its simplicity. The media that she used was colored pencils and crayons. And yet, in its simplicity, it says so much about Mary. And you know, as Catholics, we love Mary. And I love this piece of art so much. It was given to me as a gift. A print of it was given to me as a gift by a former student. And I had it matted and framed, and it hangs in my office. And whenever I teach about Mary, I will take it off the wall and I'll use it to point to the different things. And that's kind of what I want to do in this episode is to explain how Mary is portrayed in this image so beautifully and so simply. And obviously you see two women are the subject of this piece of art. It's Eve on the left and it's Mary on the right. But even before we get to those two, notice that they're in a garden. You see all around the image, you see the garden. And in the Bible, in the Old and New Testament, a garden is a place of welcoming, it's a place of hospitality. It's also a place of decision-making and transition. But even from the beginning of time, in Genesis 2, we're told that God walked with man through the garden. They were friends together in the garden. Humans were made to be in right relationship with God. And they were situated in a garden. And it's unfortunately in that garden where Adam and Eve disobeyed by taking the fruit from the tree that they were told not to. And that disobedience is the original or first sin of humankind. And that's really what started us on the road that we are on. Fast forward to the New Testament. Jesus goes to the Garden of Olives after the Last Supper, and he prays to God to let this cup pass of suffering that he knows is going to happen. Let it pass. And yet, at that moment of transition, he accepts the will of God. It's very important to understand the juxtaposition there. In the first garden, Adam and Eve were given a choice and they chose the wrong thing. They chose to disobey God. Jesus is given a choice in the garden and he chooses to obey God. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But even in the Christian tradition, you think about saints like St. Augustine, who had his major conversion toward Christianity in a garden in Milan. You think about St. Teresa of Lisieux, who often talked about the garden of souls, Jesus' garden of souls. So the idea of garden is very integral to the Christian tradition and Christian understanding. So if you look at this painting, what I love about it is you see the interplay between Eve and Mary here. And you notice that Eve is clutching in her hand fruit. She has taken the fruit that she was not supposed to. And Mary is pregnant with the fruit of Jesus, the Son of God. This is why we say that when we say the Hail Mary, we pray, blessed is the fruit of your womb. We don't say blessed is the baby, blessed is Jesus. We say blessed is the fruit of your womb. It's to draw that connection to Eve, that Mary, in fact, is the new Eve, that they each had a choice to choose fruit or not to choose fruit, and Eve, unfortunately, made the wrong choice. But if you look at the image, it's beautiful to see how Eve is portrayed. She looks very downcast and very sorrowful, and she's looking down at the fruit, if you will, of Mary's womb. And Mary, in turn, is looking down at the fruit that Eve took. But Mary's look isn't one of disappointment. It's not even one of judgment. It's one of understanding, of consolation. Look at Mary's right hand, how she lovingly is caressing Eve, almost as if to say, it's okay, it'll be fine. My son will fix this. You know, the other thing I like about this is how they're portrayed and what they're wearing. Eve's hair is down, okay? Artists would portray a woman's hair being out and loose as a sinful kind of a thing, that women were, or they were at least not virgins or pure. Mary is always depicted with a mantle or a veil over her head to represent her perpetual virginity. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but there was a monastic proverb from centuries ago that said something to the effect of that a woman's hair is the net that snares the souls of men. And so women's hair was always considered to be some kind of alluring thing that would tempt men toward lust and sin, I suppose. But this artist wants to portray the difference between the two women. I don't think she's judging Eve as much as she's saying something special and significant about Mary's virginity and her purity. Notice that Mary's also wearing blue, which is standard in depictions of Mary. She's wearing blue because that's the color of the heavens, the color of divinity. And so her proximity to the divine is closer than what you and I could enjoy by virtue of her being immaculately conceived and, of course, giving birth to the Son of God. The last thing I want to draw your attention to is at the bottom. You'll notice that the serpent has entangled the leg of Eve, almost like it's tripping her up. It's ensnared her. It's got her. And she was tempted by the serpent and she gave in. But if you see, the serpent tried to do the same thing to Mary, and Mary squished it. And we read about this, how the serpent was going to be, the woman would strike at the heel of the serpent. We read about that in Genesis 3:15. It's really important to understand that Mary is the new Eve. Many depictions of Mary show her squashing that serpent, as if to say, I'm going to give birth to my son who will absolutely get rid of sin, who will kill sin, so to speak. And so Mary, as the new Eve, reverses the original sin of Eve. That's really what it's about. She gives birth to Jesus, who is going to bring us back to right relationship with God, to make us righteous again. Just as an aside, just to follow, put a fine point on that, think about what the serpent promises to Adam and Eve, that if they take from the tree, it will give them glory. But when they take from the tree, it really brings them shame. It takes them away from God. Now, fast forward to Jesus. Jesus in the garden says, I will do your will, Father. And he is hung on a tree. He's crucified in the most shameful way possible. He's crucified on a tree that promises shame, but by virtue of his resurrection, it brought glory. So to think about the two trees here, that the tree in Genesis in the Garden of Eden promised glory, but it brought shame. Jesus died on a tree that promised shame, but brought glory. And this all starts because of Mary's fiat, her yes to the angel, her yes to God and to the will of God, to give birth to and bring Jesus into the world so that he could do this for us to save us. Anyway, wonderful, wonderful depiction of Mary. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you love the image as much as I do. Feel free to share this content. That would be great if you would do that. And we'd love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook. But either way, please keep tuning in every Friday for Fish on Fridays. Until next time, be good to each other and God bless.